Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. It is with heavy hearts that we share the sad news of extraordinary American legends who passed away in the last 24 hours on May 21, 2025. Tonight, we pay tribute to their remarkable lives and legacies that touched us all. Please join us in honoring their memory. If you find this content meaningful, kindly like, support, and subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt tributes. Thank you. Colton Ford. What happens when you live life fearlessly, breaking every boundary in your path, only to have it end in a single, shocking moment? Colton Ford, a name that sparked headlines and heated debates, did just that. From adult film stardom to music stages and theater spotlights, his journey was anything but ordinary. But when news broke of his sudden death in May 2025, fans were left reeling, wondering what really happened to this trailblazer. Let's dive into the story of a man who refused to be boxed in. Colton Ford burst onto the scene in the early 2000s, not in Hollywood, but in the world of gay adult films. With roles in flicks like Concord and Gang Bang Cafe, he quickly became a standout, snagging a Grammy Award in 2002 and the Gavian Performer of the Year title in 2003. His charisma and bold presence made him a fan favorite, but Colton wasn't content to stay in one lane. He had bigger dreams, and what he did next caught everyone off guard. In 2008, Colton traded adult sets for music studios, dropping his debut album and hitting the road with Cyndi Lauper's True Colors tour. It was a daring move, leaving a world where he was a star to chase a new kind of fame. His covers album Under the Covers followed in 2009, and by 2013, he released The Way I Am, proving he wasn't just a one-hit wonder. His 2015 EP Next Chapter showed he was still hungry to create. But the music world wasn't always kind to a man with his past, and that struggle became a defining part of his story. But there was more to Colton than music. Not one to be pinned down, Colton took his talents to the stage. In 2011, he made his off-Broadway debut in Little House on the Ferry, a vibrant musical about love and life on Fire Island. He even lent his voice to the show's album, with the single, After Hours, showcasing his soulful side. By 2014, he was starring in An All the Dead, Lie Down in Los Angeles, a gritty play that proved he could hold his own in serious theater. Critics took notice, but his past still loomed large. And that wasn't the only shadow in his life. At the heart of Colton's story was his relationship with Blake Harper, another adult film star. Their bond was captured in the 2005 documentary Naked Fame, which followed Colton's music ambitions and Blake's choice to leave adult films for nursing to support him. Colton poured his heart into a song, Love Has Found a Way, but the fairy tale didn't last. They split, and Blake faded back to his hometown, working as a nurse. Fans still talk about what went wrong, with some whispering about the pressures of Colton's reinvention. But that wasn't the end of his challenges. Rebuilding a career after adult films was no easy feat. Colton faced skepticism from industry gatekeepers, and judgment from those who couldn't see past his early work. Yet he kept pushing, blending raw talent with relentless drive. Online forums buzzed with debates about whether he could ever fully escape his past, and Colton himself admitted the journey was tougher than he let on. But just as he seemed to be carving out a new legacy, tragedy struck. On May 19, 2025, Colton Ford's life ended at 62 in a hiking accident in Palm Springs. The news hit hard, with friends and fans flooding social media with tributes. Some posts hinted at unanswered questions. Why was he hiking alone? Was there more to the story? Rumors swirled, but nothing was confirmed. What we do know is that Colton left behind a legacy that sparked conversations about second chances and living boldly. Colton Ford wasn't just an adult film star, a musician, or an actor. He was all of these, unapologetically. His story challenges us to think about reinvention, resilience, and the cost of chasing dreams against all odds. As fans mourn, they're left wondering, what would Colton have done next? And maybe the bigger question is, what's stopping us from living as fearlessly as he did? Kathleen Hughes. What makes a single scream echo through Hollywood history? Kathleen Hughes, a name tied to that unforgettable wide-eyed terror in a 1953 publicity still, wasn't just a scream queen. She was a versatile actress who captivated audiences in sci-fi, noir and beyond. But behind the glamour, her story holds surprises that kept fans hooked. Let's dive into the life of this golden age star and uncover what made her unforgettable. Born Elizabeth Margaret von Jerken in 1928, Hughes was Hollywood royalty from the start. Raised in the heart of Tinseltown, her uncle, playwright F. Hugh Herbert, introduced her to film sets, sparking a dream that acting was fun. After studying at UCLA and the Stella Adler School, she caught the eye of a 20th Century Fox scout in a 1948 theater production. Signed to a 7-year contract at just $135 a week, she swapped her birth name for Kathleen Hughes, a nod to her mother and uncle. But Fox saw her as mere decoration, casting her in forgettable bit parts. Frustrated, she broke free after 3 years, ready to prove her worth. And what happened next would shock everyone. Her big break came in 1953 with It Came from Outer Space, a sci-fi cult classic. Playing a small but pivotal role, Hughes became an icon when her terrified expression was immortalized in one of Hollywood's most famous stills, used everywhere from birthday cards to hummus ads. That same year, she stole scenes in The Glass Web, a noir thriller where she played a scheming actress blackmailing John Forsythe and toying with Edward G. Robinson. Critics called her a dainty dish of poison, and her first 3D Cheesecake Girl title from the press only fueled her fame. But there was more to her than glamour. Hughes leaned into her typecasting as a femme fatale, relishing roles as shady ladies. In 1955's Cult of the Cobra, she played a serviceman's girlfriend caught in a deadly curse, facing a snake-transforming cult leader. The next year, Three Bad Sisters saw her as one of 3 siblings battling over a multi-million-dollar inheritance. Critics weren't kind. Some called her primitive as an actress, but her blonde beauty and bold presence kept audiences glued. Rumors swirled that her sultry roles stirred off-screen buzz, though Hughes never confirmed the whispers. Her ability to keep viewers guessing was her true power. Beyond horror and noir, Hughes stirred drama in other genres. In The Golden Blade, she was a maid entangled in Baghdad palace intrigue alongside Rock Hudson. In 1954's Dawn at Socorro, she played a barmaid sparking a deadly feud between a sheriff and a criminal clan. Though critics found these films formulaic, her performances added spark, proving she could hold her own in any setting. But as the 1950s waned, Hollywood's spotlight dimmed on her. By 1956, Hughes pivoted to television, where she thrived. She guest-starred on hits like Alfred Hitchcock Presents, 77 Sunset Strip, and Perry Mason, where she played a murder victim in 1962. Recurring roles in Bracken's World and The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, both produced by her husband, Stanley Rubin, showcased her versatility. She even appeared as Henry Blake's wife in a MASH * home movie, charming fans with her brief but memorable presence. Her TV work kept her busy, but the big screen still called. After a decade-long film hiatus, Hughes returned with small roles in The President's Analyst in 1967 and Pete and Tilly in 1972. In 1990, she played an abbess in Kevin Costner's Revenge, and in 1998, she popped up in Welcome to Hollywood. At nearly 90, she made a surprising comeback in 2018's quirky short The Kissing Booth of the Swamp Girls, playing a sorceress. Fans speculated this late role hinted at a desire to reclaim her legacy, though Hughes remained tight-lipped. Her knack for mystery never faded. Off-screen, Hugh's life was as compelling as her roles. She married producer Stanley Rubin in 1954, a union that lasted 60 years, until his passing in 2014. Together, they raised 4 children in a Hollywood Hills home they built in 1956. Hughes poured her heart into philanthropy, supporting cancer and Alzheimer's research and children's hospitals. Reports claim she still answered fan mail at 96, a testament to her enduring connection with audiences. Kathleen Hughes wasn't just a scream queen, she was a survivor of Hollywood's golden age, navigating typecasting, critical jabs, and a shifting industry with grace. Her roles in sci-fi, noir, and TV left a mark, but her off-screen resilience and generosity defined her legacy. What do you think? Does her iconic scream still give you chills? Let us know below. George Wendt. Ever wonder what made George Wendt's Norm Peterson the heart of Cheers? Or what secrets lay behind his iconic barstool? George Wendt, who passed away on May 20, 2025, at 76, wasn't just the guy everyone knew by name in that Boston bar. His life was packed with unexpected twists, bold moves, and whispers of struggles that kept fans talking until the end. Let's dive into the story of a man who turned one word, beer, into a legacy that still resonates today. Born in Chicago's Beverly neighborhood in 1948, George Wendt grew up in a big family, one of 9 kids, with a Navy officer dad and a mom tied to a famous photographer. He wasn't born with a script in hand, far from it. After bombing out of Notre Dame with a 0.0 GPA, he earned an economics degree at Rockhurst University. But the stage called louder than spreadsheets. Wendt stumbled into Chicago's second city improved scene in the 1970s, starting by sweeping floors before cracking up audiences with his quick wit. That gritty start shaped the down-to-earth charm he'd later bring to Cheers. But how did a floor sweeper become America's favorite barfly? When Wendt auditioned for Cheers in 1982, he thought he was reading for a tiny part with one line, beer. His agent told him it was too small, but the producers saw something else, a guy who looked like he never left the bar. That's how Norm Peterson was born, a role Wendt played in all 275 episodes from 1982 to 1993. Every time he walked into that Boston bar, the crowd's shout of Norm echoed in living rooms across the country. His deadpan one-liners, like answering, "How's a beer sound, Norm?" with "I dunno, I usually finish them before they get a word in," made him a fan favorite. But there was more to Norm than met the eye, and Wendt's journey was just getting started. Cheers turned Wendt into a star, earning him 6 straight Emmy nominations for Best Supporting Actor from 1984 to 1989. He never took home the award, but he won hearts with Norm's relatable humor. Off-screen, things weren't always smooth. The beer he drank on set. It was warm, flat, non-alcoholic, near beer with salt for foam, hardly glamorous. Wendt once joked he was just himself with better writing, but his co-stars, like Ted Danson, called him the kindest man they knew. That warmth carried him far, but what happened when Cheers closed its doors? After Cheers ended in 1993, Wendt tried to step out of Norm's shadow with The George Wendt Show on CBS, playing a radio host car mechanic. It tanked after 6 episodes. Other projects, like guest spots on Seinfeld and Sabrina the Teenage Witch, kept him in the game, but none matched Cheers' magic. Wendt didn't sulk, he pivoted. He hit Broadway, stealing scenes as Edna Turnblad in Hairspray in 2007, a role he called pure joy. He also tackled Death of a Salesman and Elf, proving he was more than a barstool regular. But there was a storm brewing that few saw coming. In 1993, Wendt and co-star John Ratzenberger took a bold stand, suing Paramount over a deal to use their likenesses as robots in airport bars. The lawsuit, which dragged on for years, showed Wendt wasn't just a lovable lug, he fought for his rights. It settled quietly in 2000, but it sparked chatter about how far studios could push their stars. That wasn't the only buzz around Wendt's life, though, especially in his final years. 6 months before his passing, fans spotted Wendt looking frail at a California dialysis clinic, sparking rumors about his health. Posts on X lit up with concern, but no official cause of death was shared when he passed peacefully in his sleep on May 20, 2025, 32 years to the day after the Cheers finale. Some whispered about long-term health issues, but his family stayed silent, asking for privacy. What we do know is that Wendt left behind his wife, Bernadette Burkett, 3 kids, and nephew Jason Sudeikis, the Ted Lasso star who called him a hero. Wendt's legacy. It's more than Norm's one-liners. From Second City to Broadway, he brought humor and heart to every role. Tributes from co-stars like Rhea Perlman, who called him the sweetest man, and Kelsey Grammer, who said he was beloved by millions, poured in after his death. His Cheers family reunited at the 2024 Emmys, a bittersweet moment now. George Wendt wasn't just Norm, he was a Chicago kid who made the world laugh. So, what's your favorite Norm moment? Kay Arthur. What if one woman's faith could transform millions of lives, even through her own heartbreak and loss? Kay Arthur wasn't just a Bible teacher, she was a force who reshaped how people connect with Scripture. But her journey wasn't all smooth sailing, and the challenges she faced made her story even more compelling. Born in 1933, Kay grew up in a religious family that moved often, keeping her on her toes from a young age. With a sister and brother by her side, she learned early to adapt to change. By 21, she'd graduated from nursing school, ready to take on the world. But life had other plans. She married Frank Getz, an athlete and engineer, and they welcomed 2 sons. Their marriage seemed promising, but cracks formed fast. 6 years later, they divorced, and Kay, now leaning deeper into her faith, hoped to reconcile. Tragically, Frank took his own life, leaving her to navigate grief and single motherhood. That wasn't the end of her story, though, it was just the beginning. Kay's faith became her anchor. She dove back into education, enrolling at Tennessee Temple University, where she rebuilt her life and found new purpose. Her spiritual awakening wasn't just personal, it set the stage for something much bigger. But what came next would change everything. In 1965, Kay married Jack Arthur, a missionary with a heart for sharing faith. Together, they dreamed big. In 1970, they founded Reach Out Incorporated, a Bible conference center in Chattanooga, Tennessee. This wasn't just a passion project, it grew into Precept Ministries International, a global force in Bible study. Their partnership was unstoppable, but there was more to their mission than met the eye. Precept Ministries became Kay's platform to revolutionize Bible teaching. Her inductive study method, digging deep into Scripture with observation and interpretation, caught fire. People from all walks of life flocked to her teachings, drawn by her ability to make complex texts feel alive and relevant. By the 1980s, Precept was reaching millions, with study groups popping up worldwide. Kay wasn't just teaching, she was sparking a movement. But how did she turn her vision into a global phenomenon? Her books sealed her influence. Titles like A Marriage Without Regrets and the new inductive study Bible didn't just sell. They won Gold Medallion Book Awards for their depth and insight. Kay poured her heart into her writing, blending personal stories with spiritual guidance. In 2011, her impact was cemented with a Hall of Fame award, recognizing her as a trailblazer in Christian education. Yet, behind the accolades, her personal life held more challenges that kept her grounded. In 2017, Kay faced a devastating loss when Jack, her partner in life and ministry, passed away from Alzheimer's at 90. The disease had tested their strength for years, but Kay carried on, leading Precept with unwavering commitment. She balanced raising 3 sons and 9 grandchildren while steering a global ministry, a feat that left many in awe. But whispers of new challenges were starting to surface. When Kay passed away on May 20, 2025, at 91, the world paused to reflect on her legacy. Precept Ministries continues to thrive, but online buzz suggests the organization faces tough questions about its future. Some fans speculate about leadership transitions, with unverified reports claiming internal debates over who'll carry Kay's torch. Others say her inductive method will keep inspiring new generations, no matter who's at the helm. What's clear is that Kay's influence runs deep. Her teachings still guide millions to explore scripture with fresh eyes. Kay Arthur's life wasn't just about faith, it was about resilience, reinvention, and relentless drive. From personal tragedies to global impact, she showed what it means to rise above. Her story leaves us with a question: how will her teachings shape the future, and who will step up to continue her work? Think about that, and let her legacy inspire you to dig deeper into your own journey. Michael McStay. What does it take to leave a mark on 6 decades of television? Michael McStay, a name you might not know, but whose face lit up screens from Coronation Street to Doctor Who, answered that question with a career that blended grit, talent, and heart. Let's uncover the story of a man who quietly shaped British entertainment. Born in 1932, Michael McStay wasn't just another actor chasing fame. He was a thinker, studying drama, French, and philosophy at Bristol University. Picture a young man, fresh from academia, thrust into the chaos of the Cyprus emergency in the 1950s, serving as an officer during a time of unrest. That experience toughened him, but it was the stage that called him home. His hunger for acting wasn't about glamour, it was about telling stories that stuck with people. And what happened next would set him on a path to do just that. By 1960, McStay landed his first role in the BBC's Dixon of Dock Green, a gritty police drama that hooked viewers. But it was ITV's No Hiding Place that made him a familiar face, with over 80 episodes showcasing his knack for intense, believable characters. Fans couldn't get enough of his presence, and producers noticed. He wasn't just acting, he was building a reputation as a performer who could steal a scene without stealing the spotlight. But there was more to come. Fast forward to 1976, and McStay stepped into the world of Doctor Who. As zoologist Derek Mobley, he faced alien threats alongside the Fourth Doctor. It wasn't just another gig. Doctor Who fans still talk about his performance in that cult classic story. His role was small but unforgettable, proving he could hold his own in sci-fi's biggest playground. And yet, his biggest role was still years away. In 2011, McStay took on Alan Hoyle in Coronation Street, stepping into a role previously played by John Woodvine. Alan wasn't just a side character, he was Charlotte Hoyle's father, tangled in the chilling John Stape storyline. Reports claim McStay's portrayal added a layer of quiet menace, helping Stape pull off a shocking identity theft scheme involving Colin Fishwick. Fans on X still rave about how he brought depth to a twisted family dynamic, making Alan a figure you couldn't look away from. But that wasn't the whole story. McStay's talent wasn't confined to British soaps. He crossed borders, starring in 13 episodes of the French series Le Marie de l'Ambassadeur for Koba Films. He popped up in EastEnders, The Bill, and even the 1967 crime thriller Robbery. Beyond acting, he wrote plays for BBC Radio 4 and penned scripts for ITV's comedy Paul the Other One. The man was a creative force, weaving stories across mediums while never chasing the spotlight. But what drove him to keep going for so long? In a 2024 podcast with Toby Haddock, McStay shared a glimpse into his heart. He could have chased roles like James Bond, but he didn't. "I wouldn't swap my family for all the success in the world," he said, reflecting on his life with actress Jennifer Clue and their sons, Darius and Paul. That choice grounded him, giving him a legacy beyond the screen. It's a reminder that sometimes the quiet moments matter most. But the story doesn't end there. On May 18, 2025, Michael McStay sat down for lunch with his sons. Hours later, heart failure claimed him at 92. Fans on X poured out their grief, one calling him sharp and witty even at 91. Another wrote, "His Alan Hoyle in Coronation Street was unforgettable in the John State saga." His final moments, surrounded by family, felt like a fitting end for a man who valued love over fame. The tributes keep coming, each one a testament to a career that touched countless lives. Michael McStay wasn't a household name, but maybe that's what made him special. For over 60 years, he brought characters to life with a quiet intensity that lingered. From Doctor Who's alien worlds to Coronation Street's cobbled streets, he left a mark that's still felt today. So, what's the real legacy of a man like McStay? It's not just the roles he played, it's the way he made us feel, the stories he told, and the life he lived off-screen. Take a moment to think about the unsung heroes of the screen. Who else deserves to be remembered like Michael McStay? Larry Demerit. What does it take to chase a dream when the odds are stacked against you? Larry Demerit, a trainer who defied illness, broke barriers, and made history at the Kentucky Derby, showed the world exactly what it means to never give up. But his story isn't just about horses, it's about grit, heart, and a legacy that's still sparking conversations. Let's dive into the incredible life of a man who ran his race, no matter the cost. Born in the Bahamas, Larry Demerit grew up far from the glitz of Churchill Downs. Horses were his passion from a young age, a spark that burned bright in a place where racing wasn't exactly front-page news. He wasn't born into wealth or handed opportunities, every step he took was earned. Moving to the US, he carved out a name in a sport where few looked like him, training horses with a quiet determination that would one day make history. But that road wasn't easy, and what came next would test him in ways few could imagine. In 2024, Demerit did something no one had done in decades. He became the first black trainer to saddle a horse in the Kentucky Derby in 35 years. His horse, West Saratoga, wasn't the favorite, but that didn't matter. For Demerit, it was about proving a point, that talent and heart could break through any barrier. In a sport where diversity is rare, his presence on that stage sent ripples through the industry. Fans cheered not just for his horse, but for what he represented. And yet, there was something even more remarkable about his journey. For nearly 30 years, Demerit fought a battle most would never see. Diagnosed with bone cancer in 1996, he faced grueling treatments and relentless pain. But he didn't let it stop him. He kept training, kept showing up, kept pushing. By the time he reached the Derby, he'd been living with cancer for decades, a fact that made his achievement even more jaw-dropping. Friends and fans called him a warrior, and it's easy to see why. But how did he keep going when the stakes were so high? That brings us to the 2024 Kentucky Derby, the pinnacle of Demerit's career. Training West Saratoga, a long-shot horse, he lived his lifelong dream. The roar of the crowd, the flash of cameras, it was his moment. He wasn't just racing for himself, but for every underdog who'd ever been told their dream was out of reach. West Saratoga didn't win, but that wasn't the point. Demerit had made it to the biggest stage in racing, proving that persistence could outshine even the toughest odds. But that wasn't the whole story. The 2024 Derby wasn't without its shadows. Rumors swirled about the sport's darker side, after 12 horses passed in the week leading up to the race. Fans and critics alike questioned the industry's safety standards, and some wondered if the pressure of the Derby was too much. Demerit, though, stayed focused. He navigated the noise with the same quiet strength he'd always shown, keeping his eyes on the track. But what happened next would shock everyone. On May 19, 2025, Larry Demerit passed away, at 75, leaving the racing world in mourning. His wife, Inga, shared that he suffered a heart attack after years of battling cancer. Tributes poured in, with fans on X calling him an inspiration, a trailblazer, a fighter. His story had touched hearts far beyond the racetrack, showing that a life well lived isn't about the finish line, it's about the courage to keep running. Posts online buzzed with stories of how he'd inspired young trainers, proving that no dream was too big, no obstacle too great. Larry Demerit's legacy isn't just about a horse or a race. It's about a man who faced illness, broke barriers, and chased his dream until he caught it. He showed us that the greatest victories aren't always measured in trophies, but in the lives you touch. So, what's your dream, and what's stopping you from chasing it? Think about it, because if Larry Demerit could do it, maybe you can too. Gawne Granger. What if one bold move at age 12 shaped an entire career in theatre and film? Gawne Granger, a name you might not know but whose work you've likely seen, lived a life full of grit, talent, and quiet mystery. From sneaking into a legend's dressing room to stealing scenes at the National Theatre, his story is one of hustle and heart. But when he passed away in May 2025, whispers started swirling about what really defined his final years. Let's dive into the life of this British icon. The young hustler. At just 12 years old, Gawne Granger wasn't waiting for permission. Born in Glasgow in 1937, he grew up in London with a fire for acting. One day, he marched into Ivor Novello's dressing room, yes, the Ivor Novello, and charmed his way into a non-speaking role as the boy prince in King's Rhapsody. That audacity set the tone for his career. He didn't just wait for opportunities, he made them. By his teens, he was training at Italia Conti Drama School, and cutting his teeth at places like Dundee Rep and Ipswich Arts Theatre, even sharing stages with a young Ian McKellen. But that was just the start. Theatre titan. Granger's real home was the stage. He became a force at the National Theatre, delivering performances that left audiences and actors in awe. In 2004, he played Jimmy in Sing Your Heart Out for the Lads, a raw, gripping role that showed his range. He also tackled Harold Pinter's intense double bill, Party Time and Mountain Language, in the 90s, earning nods for his depth. Peers like Ken Cranham called him a leader with huge good humor. His stage work wasn't just acting, it was storytelling that stuck with you. And there was more to come. Screen star. While theatre was his heart, Granger made waves on screen too. Fans of Doctor Who know him from his 1963 appearance, a gem for sci-fi buffs. He brought grit to the Raggedy Rawne in 1988, and popped up in films like Joseph Andrews and The Little Drummer Girl. His role in Sarah, a biopic about Sarah Bernhardt, showed he could hold his own with the greats. These weren't blockbuster hits, but they were the kind of roles that made you lean in closer. Yet, his personal life was about to steal the spotlight. The Wanamaker connection. Gawne's marriage to Zoe Wanamaker, the acclaimed actress known for Harry Potter and My Family, was a partnership of equals. They were spotted together at events like the 2022 Anything Goes Press Night, radiating warmth. Friends described their bond as unshakable, built on shared passion for the craft. But behind the public smiles, there were hints of a private life kept tightly guarded. And what happened next would raise questions. The quiet retreat. In recent years, Granger stepped back from the spotlight. Rumors started swirling online about a long-term health struggle, though no one knew the details. Some fans speculated it was an age-related condition, given his gradual absence from stage and screen. Others wondered if the pressures of a decades-long career took a toll. Whatever the case, Granger kept it private, letting his work speak instead. But that wasn't the whole story. A final curtain. On May 17, 2025, Gordon Granger's journey came to an end at 87, surrounded by family. His agent, Judy Daesh, confirmed he'd been battling a long illness, though specifics stayed under wraps. Online, fans expressed grief, with posts calling him a gentle and naughty talent who left a mark. The lack of details only fueled curiosity about what he'd faced in his final years. And what happened next would shock everyone. Legacy and speculation. Granger's legacy is undeniable, decades of performances that shaped British theatre and film. Yet, there's buzz online about the parts of his life we never saw. Was his bold personality a shield for private struggles? Did his illness change how he saw his craft? These are just rumors, of course, but they keep fans talking. What we do know is that his work, from Doctor Who to Pinter's plays, will live on. Gordon Granger wasn't just an actor, he was a storyteller who grabbed life by the horns. From a daring kid to a theatre legend, he left a legacy that's bigger than the roles he played. His passing in 2025 leaves us wondering about the stories he didn't tell. What do you think made Granger so special? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep his memory alive. Franco Merli. What would you sacrifice for a moment in the spotlight? For Franco Merli, a young Italian actor, that moment came in 1975 with a role in one of cinema's most shocking films, Salo, or The 120 Days of Sodom. His brief brush with fame left a mark that followed him for decades, shaping his life in ways no one could have predicted. Let's uncover the untold story of a man who went from obscurity to controversy and back again. Franco Merli was just 18 when he stepped into the chaotic world of Pier Paolo Pasolini's Salo. Born in Rome in 1956, he wasn't chasing fame, he was a regular kid with no acting experience. Pasolini, a visionary director known for picking raw talent, spotted something in Merli, an innocent charm that fit the film's dark narrative. But what seemed like a golden opportunity would soon become a double-edged sword. How did a teenager with no training end up in one of the most provocative films ever made? That's where Merli's story takes its first twist. Salo wasn't just a movie, it was a cultural lightning bolt. Directed by Pasolini, it depicted the horrors of fascism through graphic scenes of cruelty and exploitation. Merli played one of the young victims, his role demanding vulnerability and exposure in ways that shocked audiences. One scene, where his character is singled out for having the most beautiful behind, became infamous. It wasn't just the nudity that made waves, it was the raw intensity of the moment. Fans on X still debate whether Salo was art or exploitation, but for Merli, it was a grueling experience that tested his limits. And something even more unsettling was brewing behind the scenes. During filming, Merli faced a moment that shook him to his core. According to co-star Ezio Manni, one scene called for a gun to be held to Merli's head as a reward for the contest. The young actor panicked, overwhelmed by the intensity. Manni had to step in, calming him down to finish the shot. That moment wasn't just a fleeting scare, it hinted at the emotional weight Merli carried on set. But that wasn't the whole story. Whispers on set added another layer of pressure. Rumors swirled among the crew that Merli might be gay, a claim with no solid backing, but enough sting to isolate him. Some say he was teased and sidelined during filming, pushed to the edges of the set. While these stories come from a single source and remain unverified, they paint a picture of a young man grappling with scrutiny beyond the camera. Fans on X have speculated about how this affected Merli, with some suggesting it deepened his discomfort in the spotlight. True or not, these whispers followed him as he tried to build a career. Merli's next role seemed like a chance to break free. In 1976, he played Fernando, a transvestite prostitute, in Ettore Scola's The Ugly, the Dirty and the Bad. The social satire, bolstered by Pasolini's influence, showed Merli's range, from innocence to rebellion. But when Pasolini was tragically killed in 1975, Merli lost his mentor and advocate. A small part in Illinois Mulatto Immaginario, in 1979, was his last. Why did his career stall? Some point to typecasting. Others say the Salo stigma made him untouchable. Whatever the reason, the industry turned its back. By the 1980s, Merli left acting behind. He settled in Rome, took a job at a bank, and built a quiet life. He raised 2 sons and even had a quirky companion, a pincher named Attila. For decades, he stayed out of the public eye, far from the controversy that once defined him. But Salo never faded. Online forums and X posts keep Merli's name alive, with fans dissecting the film's impact and wondering how it shaped his life. Franco Merli passed away in Rome on May 17, 2025, at 68, after a long illness. His death sparked renewed chatter about his legacy, with some calling him a forgotten talent, others a symbol of Salo's haunting reach. His story isn't just about fame, it's about what happens when you're tied to a moment too big to escape. Did Salo break Merli, or did it make him? That question lingers, inviting us to wonder about the hidden costs of art that pushes boundaries. Patrick O'Flynn. What happens when a journalist-turned-politician takes a stand that could make or break his career? Patrick O'Flynn's life was a rollercoaster of ambition, controversy, and tragedy that left everyone talking. From shaping headlines to chasing political dreams, his story is packed with twists that'll keep you hooked. Let's dive in. Born in Cambridge in 1965, O'Flynn was a hometown kid with big dreams. He sharpened his mind at King's College, Cambridge, before diving into journalism at City University London. Landing at the Daily Express, he became a voice people couldn't ignore. His columns didn't just report news, they stirred debates, often leaning hard into right-wing views. But writing wasn't enough for him. Something bigger was calling, and it wasn't long before he answered. In 2014, O'Flynn rode the Brexit wave straight into the European Parliament as a UKIP MEP. The party was on fire, pushing for Britain to break free from the EU, and O'Flynn was right in the thick of it. Serving on the Committee on Economic and Monetary Affairs, he wasn't just a backbencher, he was helping shape the conversation. UKIP's rise was electric, but cracks were already forming. And what happened next would change everything. By 2018, UKIP wasn't the same party O'Flynn had joined. Rumours swirled that it was cozying up to far-right figures like Tommy Robinson, and O'Flynn wasn't having it. He walked away, slamming the door on UKIP's radical shift. Some called it a bold stand, others whispered he was jumping a sinking ship. Either way, his exit sent shockwaves. Fans on X speculated he was trying to save his reputation, but was it too late? His next move would raise even more eyebrows. O'Flynn didn't fade quietly. He joined the Social Democratic Party, and threw his hat in the ring for the 2019 Peterborough by-election. It was a gamble to rebrand as a moderate, but the results were brutal: 135 votes, a measly 0.4%. He barely edged out the monster raving loony party. Online chatter exploded, with some calling it a humiliating misstep. Had O'Flynn misread the room, or was the public just done with him? The answer wasn't clear, but he wasn't ready to quit. Determined to stay in the game, O'Flynn launched the Snap podcast with Michael Heaver in 2021. It was his way of keeping the conversation alive, diving into politics with his signature sharp wit. The podcast carved out a loyal niche, but it couldn't erase the whispers that his political star had faded. Still, O'Flynn kept pushing, proving he wasn't just a one-hit wonder. But behind the scenes, something far heavier was brewing. Away from the spotlight, O'Flynn's life was grounded by his wife, Carol Ann, a life coach and Daily Express writer, and their 2 kids. They seemed like a tight-knit crew, but tragedy loomed. Reports surfaced that O'Flynn faced a devastating health battle, with sources saying he was hit with liver cancer. It was a gut punch, and he kept it quiet, focusing on family. The news shocked those who followed him, leaving fans wondering how much he'd been carrying in silence. Then, in May 2025, the bombshell dropped: O'Flynn was gone. Tributes poured in across X, with some hailing him as a fearless voice, others debating his polarizing choices. Speculation swirled about his final days, and whether his health battle shaped his later years. Had he known the end was near? The question lingered, adding a haunting layer to his story. His death wasn't just a loss. It sparked a firestorm of reflection on a man who never shied from the fight. Patrick O'Flynn's life was a whirlwind of headlines, hard choices, and heartbreak. From the Daily Express to the European Parliament, he chased influence, but faced setbacks that tested him. His UKIP exit, electoral flop, and quiet battle with illness painted a complex picture. Was he a visionary who stood his ground, or a man whose ambitions outpaced his reach? That's for you to decide. Drop your thoughts below. What do you think defined Patrick O'Flynn? Nino Benvenuti. What does it take to become a boxing legend, only to walk away at the peak of your prime? Nino Benvenuti, Italy's golden boy, rose from a small island to conquer the world's toughest rings, but his story hides struggles that few saw coming. Let's dive into the life of a champion whose victories and mysteries still captivate fans today. Born in 1938 on the quiet island of Isola, Italy, Nino Benvenuti wasn't your typical kid. At just 13, he laced up gloves and started throwing punches that would change his life. By 17, he was on Italy's national team, tearing through the amateur scene with a jaw-dropping record: 120 wins, 1 loss. That single defeat only fueled his fire. In 1960, at the Rome Olympics, he clinched welterweight gold, standing on the world stage at 22. It was the kind of moment that makes you a household name overnight. But Nino wasn't done climbing. Turning pro in 1961, he was a force of nature. Picture this: over 70 fights without a single loss. He danced through the welterweight division, then boldly stepped up to middleweight in 1963, proving he could hang with the big hitters. His technical brilliance and relentless drive left opponents stunned, racking up knockouts and building a reputation as Italy's pride. Fans couldn't get enough, and neither could the media. But the real test was yet to come. By 1967, Nino was the middleweight world champion, a title he'd hold until 1970. His battles with Emil Griffith were the stuff of legend, grueling, intense, and packed with drama. These weren't just fights, they were personal. Reports from the time hinted at heated exchanges outside the ring, with tensions that kept fans glued to every punch. Nino's ability to outsmart opponents made him a star, but whispers of the physical toll started creeping in. Could a man this dominant stay untouchable forever? The answer would hit harder than anyone expected. In 1971, everything changed. Nino suffered 3 straight losses, including a crushing title rematch. At 33, he shocked the world by hanging up his gloves. Fans were left reeling, and rumors swirled. Some said the brutal fights had worn him down, others whispered about pressures outside the ring, maybe financial, maybe personal. Whatever the truth, Nino walked away with the 1st of July '82 record, 35 knockouts, and a legacy that still sparks debate. But what happened next would show a different side of the champ. Life after boxing wasn't easy, but Nino reinvented himself. He opened a restaurant, stepped into the spotlight as a TV presenter, and even served as a city councillor in Trieste. The man knew how to pivot. In 1996, the International Boxing Hall of Fame cemented his legacy, and in 2006, he carried the Olympic flag at the Turin Winter Games, a nod to his enduring impact. He even dabbled in acting, popping up in 2 Italian films. But behind the success, some fans speculated he struggled to find his place after the ring. Posts online have long hinted at challenges adapting to a life without gloves, though details remain scarce. And that's where the mystery deepens. When Nino passed away on May 20, 2025, at 87, tributes poured in, but so did questions. Recent buzz on platforms, like X, suggested his final years weren't as peaceful as his legacy might imply. Some fans pointed to the long-term effects of his brutal career, with posts claiming he faced health struggles, though nothing's been confirmed. Others wondered if his abrupt retirement hinted at untold stories. What we do know is that Nino Benvenuti left a mark that transcends boxing, inspiring fighters and fans alike. So, what's the real story behind Nino's rise and fall? He was a champion who conquered the ring, redefined himself outside it, and left us with questions that linger. From Olympic gold to a controversial exit, his life was a fight in every sense. What do you think drove him to walk away, and what secrets did he carry? Drop your thoughts below, and let's keep this legend's story alive. Gadi Kinda. What happens when a star burns bright, but fades too soon? Gadi Kinda, a footballer who lit up pitches from Israel to Kansas City, left the world at just 31, and his story is one you won't forget. Born in Ethiopia, Gadi moved to Israel at 3, where a soccer ball became his ticket to a bigger life. Growing up in Ashdod, he wasn't just kicking a ball around, he was dreaming of stadiums. And by 17, he was living that dream, debuting for FC Ashdod in the Israeli Premier League. But that was just the start. Gadi's talent shone early. At Ashdod, he played over 7 seasons, racking up nearly 200 appearances. He was a midfielder with flair, threading passes and scoring when it mattered. By 2018, he caught the eye of Beitar Jerusalem, a bigger stage, but the real game-changer came in 2020. Gadi took a leap across the ocean to Sporting Kansas City in the MLS. And what happened next? He exploded onto the scene. In his first game against Vancouver, he scored, setting the tone for a stellar season. 6 goals in 15 matches, a playoff run, and a permanent contract. Gadi was a fan favorite, loved for his heart as much as his hustle. But that wasn't the whole story. In 2022, everything stalled. A brutal injury sidelined Gadi for the entire season, and whispers started about whether he'd ever return. He was down, but not out. By 2023, he was back, fighting through recovery to rejoin Sporting KC. Yet, something pulled him home. Later that year, Gadi returned to Israel, signing with Maccabi Haifa. He played 57 games, netting 5 goals and 8 assists, proving he still had that spark. But something bigger was brewing. On the international stage, Gadi was a pride of Israel. Debuting in 2021 against Montenegro, he came off the bench and scored in stoppage time, a moment that echoed his grit. He earned 10 caps, even facing off against Cristiano Ronaldo in a Portugal clash. His goal in a Euro 2024 qualifier against Andorra showed he could shine on any stage. But then, everything changed. In early May 2025, news broke that Gadi was hospitalized, battling what his club called a complex medical battle. Fans were stunned. Sporting KC held up his jersey before a game, urging support. Some posts online whispered about cancer, though nothing was confirmed. What we do know is Gadi faced his fight with faith, joining prayers and embracing spiritual strength, as teammates like Dan Byton called him a brother who always smiled. And then, on May 20, 2025, the unthinkable happened. Gadi was gone at 31. But there's more to this story. The timing of his passing hit hard. Israel was grappling with conflict, with strikes in Gaza dominating headlines. Gadi's death wasn't just a loss for football, it was a moment that united fans across rivalries. From Kansas City to Haifa, tributes poured in. Patrick Mahomes, the NFL star, posted prayers on X, while the MLS and Israel's FA mourned a player whose kindness matched his talent. Teammates called him a light, someone who lifted everyone around him. And yet, questions linger. What took Gadi so soon? Rumors swirl, but the truth remains unclear, leaving fans to wonder. Gadi Kinda's story isn't just about goals or games. It's about a kid from Ethiopia who conquered fields and hearts. His journey, from Ashdod's dusty pitches to MLS stadiums, reminds us how fast life can change. He left behind a legacy of passion, humility, and that unforgettable smile. As we reflect on his loss, one question haunts: what might Gadi have done next? Share your thoughts below. How did Gadi's story touch you? And don't miss our next video, diving into another untold tale.